Hi, I'm Patrick Carter, a pilot, outdoor enthusiast, and adventurer living in Homer, Alaska. Ride along with me as we explore Alaska in a Cessna 185 on floats. Some say walk a week or fly an hour. That phrase definitely holds true with float planes. The ability to land on almost any body of water makes a float plane one of the most versatile vehicles in the world. It also requires the pilot to develop a new set of skills. Basic tasks that we often take for granted on wheels, such as taxiing and parking, take on a whole new meaning without brakes and current and wind. I hope these adventures will be both entertaining and educational as I bring you along for the ride and show you the skills I've developed along the way. Today, we're in search of adventure, starting at the Trident Seaplane Base in Kodiak, Alaska. The Trident Base is a harbor, which means that in addition to seaplanes, there are other types of vessels to deal with, such as ships, water taxis, barges, and the occasional whale. I'm going to use a technique today called popping the flaps to get off the water. As soon as I reach 55 knots, almost flying speed but not quite, I'm going to go from 1 click of flaps to 3 clicks of flaps and get the aircraft in the air. Here come the flaps, and liftoff. In Alaska, weather is always a factor. As you can see, we have an overcast ceiling. Our intended destination is a cabin on the shore of Uganic Lake on Kodiak Island. Here's our flight path recorded on Cloudahoy. As you can see, we fly up into one valley until the clouds meet the mountains, blocking the pass. Then we try another valley with the same result. At this point, we decide it is best to pick an alternate destination. The weather to the north looks better, so we divert to Pillar Lake instead. This is a freshwater lake nestled between a black sand beach and forested mountains of Afognak Island, north of Kodiak. I find ForeFlight to be one of the most indispensable tools flying in the backcountry of Alaska. The ability to quickly access terrain, flight planning, and fuel planning databases is invaluable. I also use ForeFlight to create my own database of places I've been, places friends have recommended, and a list of cabins on publiclakecabinsak.com, which has come in handy more than once when the weather has forced me to land and find a place to sleep. I always carry a tent in the airplane, but definitely prefer a cabin in bad weather.
Turn the speed off. There's 70, touchdown below 60.
Here we are landing on Pillar Lake. We often depart with an unknown destination or change our route mid-flight based on the weather. The best Alaskan adventures are those about the journey, not the destination. We're pulling up to a public-use cabin on Pillar Lake. Alaska has an amazing network of public-use cabins that are either free or very inexpensive to rent, often only accessible by float plane. This is an example of one. The airplane has been beached, and here I'm turning it around or heeling it up on the shore so that it's pointed out for startup. Notice I keep a rope on each float, and I keep it tied to the rear cleat and looped around the front cleat. This allows me to quickly unloop the rope from the front cleat, push the airplane out, and then pull it back with the rear cleat, putting the heel of the float up on the shore. On this takeoff, I'm going to use a technique where I lift one float out of the water before the other. The hydrodynamic drag on the floats keeps the airplane from achieving flying speed. So if you can lift one float out, you can reduce the hydrodynamic drag by half, allowing you to accelerate quickly to flying speed for takeoff. Notice one float out of the water, and takeoff. The next technique I'm going to discuss is the step turn takeoff. This is an advanced float technique used on lakes that are not long enough for a straight line takeoff. To depart from such lakes, we get the aircraft on step and then make a turn during our takeoff run. Sometimes this turn can be a 30-degree dogleg. Oftentimes, it requires a full 180-degree turn. Initially, the floats are plowing through the water, and the hydrodynamic drag is very high. At a certain speed, the floats begin to ride on top of the water, or hydroplane, drastically reducing the drag and allowing the aircraft to accelerate. The goal of the step turn takeoff is to get to hydroplaning speed before the final takeoff run. Often, the direction we take off is dictated by the wind, but sometimes it's decided by the terrain. We always want to take off into the wind, except when the wind is coming from steep terrain. This would mean we can't do a straight line takeoff into the wind because we can't climb in enough time to turn before hitting the terrain. However, a step turn takeoff drastically shortens the takeoff run, allowing us to take off, climb, and turn safely before the terrain. On this takeoff, I had a hill in front of me, requiring me to turn immediately after departure. This is something you should always consider before departing a lake. Getting the aircraft airborne is one thing, but avoiding terrain is paramount. On landing on Pillar Lake, due to wind direction, I had to get my base leg as close to the mountain as possible and then turn right to land into the wind. Landing a float plane on water with a little chop is not much different than landing on land, except that you don't flare, similar to a wheel landing in a tailwheel airplane. You want to make your descent rate equal 0 as soon as your floats touch the water and fly right on. Glassy water landings are different altogether, and we will discuss those in another episode.